Hey everyone, it's Kai from WCC, and today we're going to look at the last two decks from Dragon's Vanity, and that is Aqua and Shadow Paladin. And we're going to look at mainly the decks that got released with this set, so it'll be Revonn and Claret Sword Dragon. So we'll start with Aqua first, talk about the Revonn deck. I'll go through the deck itself, all the cards, and the overall game plan before moving on to Shadows. So with our grade 3 lineup, we are only running 4 Revonns. So this is kind of a new thing with Dragon's Vanity, is that a lot of clans have started to get these more draw power and more search powers at the lower grades. So pretty much everyone in this set got grade 3 searchers on the grade 1. So that enables us to play a bit more greedily, allows us to play a more aggressive earlier game plan, and just stack more grade 2s and grade 1s to be more aggressive early rather than run a few more grade 3s. And just with the combination of the draw, the search, and G-assist as well, we can always just ride our key grade 3 that we need most of the time. And usually, I mean, like when you look at the other decks, if you don't ride your key grade 3, you're already at a disadvantage, so let's just go all in and go for it. Revonn himself is a pretty good effect. Once per turn, you can rest a card and give your opponent's Vanguard minus 5k. That doesn't really do much in a way, in that, okay, sure, it lets a few more cards hit. When you're playing against Force, they go down to 8, so at least everything kind of hits naturally. But even when they get a trigger, that kind of hits them out of range. But the main thing is that a lot of your skills proc when your opponent is not at its original power. When your opponent's Vanguard is not at their original power, so they're at 8. If they get a trigger, they go to 18. Still not original power, so cards will proc there. Second effect is that when you have 5 or more rested rear guards, this card gets 15k power and +1 drive. And if you have a grade 3 in soul, you will get a crit. So overall, pretty decent card. Let's move on to the meat of the deck, and that is grade 2. So grade 2s, we're running quite a lot of them, running 17 grade 2s. And grade 2 is where the meat of this deck is. You're going to do some adjustments to this deck based on how you would see fit. The main cards that we are running 4 of is Glaeus and Coral Assault, because they're just that good. They're just that good. The things you can tweak around with it are the amount of Foivos you want to run, Tidal Assault you want to run, and Algos you want to run. If you're running the Algos engine, you'll definitely bump this up to Algos up to 4, but that means you'll take out like a Coral Assault or a Foivos. We can look at this grade 2 lineup based on the cost that they need on the cards. Like the only card that doesn't restand in this grade 2 lineup is Coral Assault, but it gets power very easily. It generates soul and like draws you a card. So that kind of effect we definitely want to include. It's just overall a great effect. But when we think of everything else, they're all restanders, but they work off different costs. So Glaeus works off a Counterblast 1 cost. This Foivos does not use Counterblast or Soul. You just have to discard a card. And then Tidal Assault by himself is a Soul Blast, and Algos himself is like a Counterblast, and sometimes you might need a Soul Blast. But then, when you think about this, we don't usually use that much Counterblast in this deck, except, like, Revonn himself doesn't use any Counterblast, he uses skill, so the Counterblast will all be going into these restanders. Algos and Glaeus will be the ones where you're mainly using the Counterblast. Sometimes you use Wheel Assault's effect, but that's like in another time. But like Foivos, when you look at that effect, the Soul Blast 1, it does have a first effect. It's Soul Blast 1, you rest it, and then you can call the top card of your deck. Generally, it's an okay effect. It's nice. It's a nice extra card there, but since you rest it, you're just missing out on 1 extra attack, so that might not be something you want to use all the time. The main thing with this card is that it's a discard to restand, so it's technically free. You don't need Soul Counterblast, but you do need Hand, so you don't want to spam that too often. That's why I put it at 3. And then Tidal Assault and Algos, they're both kind of first attackers that use different costs, so you can kind of jump them around there. But at least Tidal Assault, you don't really have to, you can use it like a second or third attack, just you'll minus some power. With something like Glaeus and all that, they do Glaeus and Foivos, they proc off your Revonn's attack, so your Revonn's going to attack, you can use their effects and then stand them, so you can kind of get off extra attacks, and yeah, that's just another thing. Algos and Tidal Assault, kind of first attackers. Tidal Assault a bit more, where you can attack him anytime you want, but Foivos and Glaeus are after Vanguard restanders. So that's just basically the overall mix and match of the grade 2s. And then onto the grade 1s, we're just running a lean grade 1, 12 grade 1s, just 4 of everything. Grade 3 Searcher, and then we run Narissa. This is the new card. When you rest it by one of your effects, you can Soul Blast one and stand it, gets 10k. So it hits some nice numbers. And at the end of your turn, if you have 4 or more rested rear guards, you can just put into Soul and draw cards. Similar to Carl Assault's effect, it will generate Soul and let you draw cards. Draw power is king in standard. That's why I just got to put in 4 of this. And then got Wheel Assault. Wheel Assault's nice. You get to just call a card and be aggressive early. And then you also have that secondary effect where you can just kind of sneak in an extra attack. So pretty nice, pretty nice. If you think about this deck, it's a pretty aggressive deck. It's like it's like Narukami in a way where you get a lot of multi-attacks, but instead of getting retires, you just get more multi-attacks. So if they get a trigger and you don't have the power lines to beat through it, then it sucks, but that's how it is. That's how the cookie crumbles. With the trigger lineup, we have 4 heals, 6 draw, and 6 front. So this 6 front is kind of strange. People wonder why not just run crits? Well, ideally, when you trigger your Foivos and your Galeas restands, the fronts will make them hit past power lines. If your opponent's going to trigger these, like triggering a front from one of your triple drives, will kind of boost you over and then put on more pressure on your opponent. You can definitely run crits. I totally agree if you run crits or not. But I think this is more up to the player if you want to run crits or fronts. I went with fronts because I like fronts in Excel. And then yeah, triggering the Revonn, you like do multiple attacks early, and then maybe they get a trigger. Your Vanguard swings, your opponent guards that, and then you trigger a front, and then your other stuff is also big now. And they can swing it again. So that's basically the overall idea. And then yeah, we're just running a star. That's about it. So overall, yeah, think about this as like no retiring Narukami, but way more attacks. If you go first, you have a really good advantage. If you go second, then sucks to be you. Narukami doesn't really have that big problem of going second, but yeah, when you go first with this deck, you pretty much don't really. There's no response to this deck, so to say. Kind of like Gold Paladins in a way. So yeah, that's all for Aqua Force in my opinion. I think it's a pretty good deck. So if you like Aqua Force, you have this. It's faster than Maelstrom simply because sure, Maelstrom you don't get to guard, but Maelstrom really gets ridiculous on the second grade 3 ride. This you're trying to end them as fast as possible. And you probably won't even have to go into the grade 3 ride half the time if you just get a bit lucky. All right, moving on to Shadow Paladin. So let's talk about Shadow Paladin. So we got Kanzaki here looking nice and chill. Shadow Paladin is Claret Sword that we're looking at. Let's go into the deck a bit. We've got Claret Sword Dragon. We're only running 4 Claret Sword Dragon. It's in SP. We're only looking at SPs because Shadow Paladin is always very expensive. But unfortunately, Claret Sword is actually not that expensive compared to the other cards in the deck. Mainly because people thought Claret Sword was pretty lackluster. And sure, it's not as good as other grade 3s that you'd come to expect. Like a lot of grade 3s, you can sit on them. Like Sonata, for example, you can counterblast 1 and keep on getting cards from that. Claret is not. Claret is, it comes into play and you just want to go off immediately. All right, when it comes to the play, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put as many grade 1s into your drop zone, and for each grade 1 that you put, you get plus 10k for the entire turn. And then the second effect is you can counterblast 1 and bind 7 grade 1s, and it restands after the battle with a -1 drive. So you want to use both effects in that one turn. You want to get yourself big, you want to give yourself like a force 2, and then you want to just restand on that turn. Because if you don't restand on that turn, this Claret Sword just swinging for like a 13k, and it just feels like a wet noodle. So overall, Claret, not a crazy card, but combined with the rest of the deck and how you're going to play this deck, it is an okay card for what it's worth. The rest of the deck is, let's look at the grade 2s. Again, not that many grade 2s, okay? We got Morian Spear, we got Dark Pride Dragon. We have like 1 Maha. Maha is the flex slot, but mainly the key pieces here, Morian Spear Dragon, Soul Blast 1, discard a card and draw a card, it gets 5k. And then if you discard a grade 1, it gets 10k instead. So you think about that, you play that grade 2, bam, it's 20k. If you somehow didn't discard a grade 1, it's at least 15, but if like 15 on a Vanguard circle, that is some pretty decent pressure too. And then Dark Pride Dragon, when it comes into play, you mill the top 3 cards of your deck, you get 5k. And if you mill a grade 1, you can counterblast 1, and then you can draw a card. So half draw power there. You run a lot of grade 1s in this deck. You run 20 grade 1s, so it's pretty easy to hit. And that is kind of your draw engine. And again, hits 15k. So combined with other cards, it's going to be hitting pretty decent numbers, especially when it just drops down at grade 2 and it puts on a lot of pressure. We all know what Maha does, so we'll skip that for now. Let's move on to the grade 1s. grade 1s, we have 20 grade 1s, a lot of grade 1s. The new grade 1s, we have Blue Espada Dragon. This card actually just is your grade 2 and grade 3 searcher. So when it comes to play, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and you can add either a Claret Sword Dragon or a Morian Spear Dragon into your hand. And then you put the rest into the bin. You put it into the drop zone. And you have 5 or more rear guards in the, you have 5 or more grade 1 cards in the drop zone. It gets plus 10k. So hitting 18, helping you search your grade 2 and grade 3, make it more consistent. If you didn't hit a Claret or a Morian, that means your Brandwin might hit Claret Sword Dragon easier. Or you play another Blue Espada, have another chance to hit it. So pretty good. Brandwin is your grade 3 searcher. She pretty much hits 13 all the time as well, so make some nice numbers there. And then the rest of these grade 1s, you got the main, still good. Getting free cards is good. Blackwing Swordbreaker, getting cards is good again. Counterbalance 1, draw a card. Can get 10k when you play it from hand. Connor, we would have seen this card before. Again, we play really aggressively with this deck, which sometimes even playing cards down as soon as grade 1. If you go second, bam, drop some grade 1s and bash. You're going to fill out your grade 1s quite a lot, especially if you also drew in a main. Connor will just be there to free it up and help you just make more space, or just, some of these cards when placed after their turn is over, they become kind of just useless cards that don't have effect. Connor just makes them useful again, gets you that extra guard. And then we got grade 1 null guards, because nothing really that much to play. We might as well just free up that slot for more crits, and yeah, it's good. So moving on to our trigger lineup, we got 10 crits and 2 draw. That's pretty much just a very aggressive game there. Want to crit often, and then once your opponent's at like 3 or 4, your Claret Sword will start dealing lethal blows where your opponent has to guard. So overall, you got to play very, very aggressively with this deck. Grade 1s, bam, they're getting power. Grade 2, slam again, make power, and then hopefully by the time you've hit Claret Sword, you already have 7 in the drop zone that you can just restand and just finish the game right then and there. Very, very aggressive force deck. Probably the most aggressive force deck right now since Revia got nerfed. So against like Excel decks, you're going to have a great time just making these really annoying calls. Like, if you think about it, Morian Spear, 20k by itself, boosted by like a 13k already. That's 33, right? How do you guard 33 when you're at grade 2? Not much, right? Again, maybe you don't get the 10k. It's like 15 plus your 13, 28 already. That's still pretty annoying to guard, right? But then, let's say you get a Blue Espada Dragon. This is 18 by itself. It doesn't even need like a boost anymore, and it's already hitting really, really decent numbers. But then you combine it with anything else, then bam, like, things are just getting out of control. So if you're able to play a bunch of these grade 1s and make some great numbers going into the game, then your opponent is just going to be forced to drop hand really quickly, and then your Claret Sword just finish the game. If not, maybe you can just run another Claret Sword, because you have that many ways to go through your deck and search and draw. That, yeah, even not running 4 draw, only 2 draw, you can even replace this with like 12 crit and just run a few more grade 1 nulls. But like even with that, like a lesser amount of draw, the rest of your cards do help you draw, so you probably do have a good chance of drawing into your second Claret Sword, just finishing the game there again. So your worst matchup for this deck is Protect. So when Angel Feather comes out, you're going to feel really bad. Right now, the best Protect decks will probably just be like, you'll have like Mega Colony. Well, no one plays Mega Colony, so who cares? Nubatama, Dark Irregulars, they'll basically just probably beat you pretty hard. But yeah, if you're playing against Force, you're faster than Force. You're probably the fastest Force deck to just get fat and smash. Grade against Narukami's, Excels, same thing. With this deck, against like something like Narukami, who can bind your cards, you don't run Blaster Dark, so you don't care if your Blaster Dark gets bound. A lot of your cards are just, yeah, once you use the effect that turn, they can bind it. Sure, who cares? It doesn't matter. You don't need any of these cards. The worst thing that happens to you is they bind a grade 1, so you can bind less grade 1s. But with like Cho getting restricted and people having to play a bit more extra cards to accommodate getting your back row slots, yeah, then it's your grade 1s are gonna survive like longer and probably have more cards you can use with Connor and just wipe them and just be able to restand a bit more. So overall, pretty interesting. It's not as bad as people think it is, alright? The only bad thing about Shadow Paladin is that this Brandwin is absolutely crazy expensive. And then when you combine it with everything else, like the mains, these like SPPGs, I guess. Then it gets expensive. Claret is not expensive, but everything else in the deck is expensive. That's the bad thing about this deck. If you like Shadows, you're gonna have fun with this deck. If you like Aqua, you're gonna have fun with Aqua. And then hopefully, I think they'll stick around for a bit until at least Chronofane comes out, right? So see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys have fun with Dragons, Vanity, and bye.